What if I told you that the biggest sin you ever committed might be the very reason Allah brings you closer to Him? What if the darkest chapter of your life is actually the chapter through which Allah plans to save you? This is the story of a young woman who carried her sin like a heavy stone on her chest, until one sentence from an old imam shattered her guilt forever. If you've ever felt too sinful, too broken, too unworthy of Allah's mercy, then this story is for you. She thought Allah would never forgive her until this happened. In a silent corner of a crowded city lived a young woman named Amina, whose heart carried a secret weight no one could see, a past she wished she could erase, a mistake that echoed every night in her chest like a restless storm. And though she moved with the world, smiling, working, laughing, no one knew the truth she guarded inside, the truth that made her feel unworthy of love, unworthy of hope, unworthy of Allah's mercy, yet desperately longing for redemption, longing for a chance to breathe again without fear, longing for a moment of peace in a world where her own thoughts had become her greatest enemy. And every night when she lay awake, she remembered the words she once heard in a small masjid years ago: "The mind of a wise man is the safest custody of secrets. Cheerfulness is the key to friendship. Patience and forbearance will conceal many defects." A saying of Hazrat Ali, that she once admired but never understood until her life itself became a prison of concealed defects, hidden sins, and a broken heart that kept whispering, "There is no return for you." Yet deep inside she wondered if Allah could still love a sinner like her, if He could forgive her despite the darkness she once walked into, the mistake she made out of ignorance, vulnerability, and loneliness. Amina had once trusted someone who didn't deserve her trust, someone who promised love but only used her innocence for entertainment, someone who dragged her into a sin she regretted even before it was committed. And though she repented many times afterward, begging Allah in tears, her heart still felt stained, as if the sin was carved into her soul, as if every salah she prayed was too weak to lift her back into Allah's light, as if Shaitan kept whispering, "You will never be forgiven." And she believed those whispers until they became chains around her spirit, pulling her deeper into self-hatred and despair. For years, she hid this from everyone, her parents, siblings, friends, because she feared judgment, feared rejection, feared the look in their eyes if they knew, feared hearing words that would shatter her fragile heart. So she buried her past so deeply that even she pretended it never happened, yet the guilt lived inside her like an ache that never healed. One day, as she walked home from work with her head down, feeling the familiar heaviness in her heart, she passed by a small masjid where an old imam sat on the steps, watching the sunset with a peaceful smile. He looked at her with eyes so gentle that something inside her loosened, and he greeted her with "Assalamu alaikum, daughter," a warmth she hadn't felt in years. She hesitated, but something in her heart pushed her to sit beside him, and after a long silence, she whispered, "Sheikh, does Allah forgive sins that we can't forgive ourselves for?" The imam turned to her slowly, as if he had heard this question many times before, and said softly, "Allah forgave a man who killed 99 people. He forgave a prostitute for giving water to a thirsty dog. He forgave a man who spent his whole life sinning, but said, 'Ya Allah,' with sincerity once before dying. Who are you to think your sin is greater than Allah's mercy?" Amina's eyes filled with tears, but she looked down and whispered, "But my sin has stained me. I feel dirty. I feel ruined." The imam shook his head gently. "You are not stained. You are human. Shaitan wants you to believe that one sin defines you, but Allah sees your heart, your regret, your pain. A sin that leads you back to Allah is better than 1,000 good deeds that make you arrogant." These words struck her heart like lightning, breaking something open within her, and she suddenly cried. Not the quiet tears she cried alone in her room, but deep, shaking sobs that felt like years of guilt spilling out of her chest. The imam let her cry without asking anything, without demanding details, without judgment, and when she finally stopped, he recited a saying of Hazrat Ali, "Patience and forbearance will conceal many defects," then said, "Your patience in carrying this for so long is not a punishment. Perhaps Allah was preparing your heart, strengthening you, protecting you from those who would judge you, until the day you were strong enough to seek Him sincerely. Amina felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope, a small fragile candle flickering in the darkness of her heart. That night, she went home and prayed long after Isha, placing her forehead on the ground and crying to Allah from the deepest place in her soul, begging Him to forgive her, begging Him to cleanse her, begging Him to return her heart to purity. And as she whispered, "Ya Allah, I come back to you," she felt as if an invisible weight was being lifted from her chest, and for the first time in many years, she slept peacefully without nightmares, without guilt, without the echo of her past chasing her. Days passed, and she became more cheerful, gentler with herself, kinder to strangers, more honest in her worship, and she began keeping her secrets in silence, letting Allah be the only one aware of her flaws and her healing. Slowly, she made new friends, real friends, who saw her bright smile and admired her kindness, never knowing the battle she fought in silence. And she remembered another part of Hazrat Ali's wisdom. Cheerfulness is the key to friendship, because her new smile drew people to her, not because her past was perfect, but because her heart was sincere. Months later, Amina decided to dedicate her time to helping other young women battling hidden guilt, depression, and emotional wounds, becoming a quiet guide for others, using her own pain as a lantern for those still trapped in darkness. And every time a girl told her, "I feel like Allah won't forgive me," she smiled softly and repeated the Imam's words, "Your sin is not greater than Allah's mercy." One evening, while standing by her window watching the moon, she whispered to herself, "I am not my past. I am Allah's servant, and Allah is the turner of hearts." And with that belief, she finally felt free, finally felt whole, finally felt worthy again. Not because she was perfect, but because she had repented sincerely, and Allah never rejects a heart that returns to Him with tears and hope. In the end, Amina learned that her greatest secret was safe with Allah. Her greatest transformation came from repentance, and her greatest strength was the patience that concealed her flaws and the cheerfulness that rebuilt her friendships, all rooted in the timeless wisdom of Hazrat Ali. Yes, that the mind of the wise is the safest place for secrets. The heart of the cheerful attracts friendship, and the soul of the patient is loved by Allah. My dear brothers and sisters, if this story touched your heart, then don't leave without sharing it. Someone out there is drowning in guilt, thinking Allah will never forgive them, and your share could save their heart. Subscribe to Deen in Minute for more emotional Islamic stories that revive your iman, heal your soul, and remind you that Allah's mercy is always greater than your mistakes. Click the bell icon and join our family of seekers walking step by step toward Allah.